Welcome to A Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the answer to life, the universe, and everything is sex workers. It only feels better every time I say it. I'm Parker Westwood. I'm going to be your host. Today, we get to talk about a whole bunch of things. We go from talking about activism in the community to stigma to the sex work is work slogan to stripping. It's kind of a nice grab bag, and it's a really fun conversation with someone who I met because of COVID-19. I saw this writing workshop for sex workers advertised on Instagram, and I immediately wrote to get signed up. It was through Sexquisite events, and they wrote me back, and they were very kind and said, we only do in-person classes in London. And I wrote back and was like, well, if you ever move to doing anything online, let me know. I was super bummed. It seemed like a really good thing. And then COVID hit, and they wrote me back, and it turns out they moved everything online like all the rest of us did. And so I got to attend this workshop for sex workers by sex workers, and it was a really beautiful experience. And I got to meet my guest today, April Fiasco, or Carmen Alley. We had an incredible interview, and I'm not going to keep you from it, so here we go. Everyone listening, we are here with April Fiasco. I'm actually going to let you take the time to introduce yourself the way that you prefer to be introduced, so pronouns and however you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm April, she, her. I'm a sex worker and burlesque performer, and I also co-run a virtual strip club called Cybertease, and I co-run a sex worker community called Sexquisite. We put on live events, and we also run online workshops for sex workers and allies. I also do stand-up and acting under my real name, but we're not here to talk about that, so...
A woman of many hats.
Exactly.
So incredible. Yeah, I so admire the work that you do. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you. I was curious, so one of the questions that I ask most people on the podcast is, how did you get your start in sex work specifically?
So basically, I was at university, and some of the guys on my course were like, oh, I want to go to a strip club for my birthday. So we went to this strip club, and then basically one of the strippers came over to our table and was like, hey, does anyone want to dance? And I was like, yeah, I want to dance. Because she was basically super hot. So I went and had a private dance with her. I was like the first one. I think I got up before any of the guys.
Of course you were.
I had a private dance, and I was like, I could do this. Why am I not doing this? And then a few months later, I was like, oh, I need some more money to pay my rent at uni. These university loans, student loans are not going far enough. So I basically just called up the club, and I was like, hey, can I come in and work? And they were like, yeah, come in for an audition, which basically, yes. Yeah, sorry, I just did quote marks. Basically went in, he was like, walk on the stage, take your top off. And then he just looked at me and was like, yeah, that's fine. Come in tonight. And I was like, he was like, you've got to wear stilettos. And I was like, I don't really have any money to buy any stilettos. So he lent me £30 to go to this shop in Leicester, the Midlands in the UK. It's like crappy little shoe shop that sold stripper shoes for £30. And I bought those stripper shoes. And then that night I went in and like made like over £100. Mm-hmm. And then gave him back the money for the stripper shoes. And then I was like, this is my life now, I guess.
That's amazing. And how long was your stripping career? I know like COVID has changed everything in that department for a lot of us, but how long did you strip?
For me, it's been on and off. So like I stripped when I was at uni, and then for a few years after, then I stopped for a long time and worked in admin, and I wanted to kill myself. Mm-hmm. Then I started doing stand up on the side as well, which was really cool. And then a few years ago, I was doing a few part-time jobs, and I was like, oh, I need some extra money. And I was like, oh, once a stripper, always a stripper.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to the club, to a club in London, which I'd worked at a few times, like years ago, and then basically went back. So I've been like on and off. And then before COVID, I wasn't really working at the club that much. I was doing more like stage managing and PA freelance work, and also like stand up and burlesque performing. I did one kind of basically pop-up strip club in February before lockdown called Brazilian Wax, which is like a
Mm.
really cool event run by Jonah Starry, who did Fuck You Pay Me, which is a show about being a stripper.
Yes.
It's an amazing theatre show. And we ran it as a co-op, so basically we split all the profits equally. So even if you were on the door, like charging people entry, or you were doing dances on stage, or you're doing private dances, we split it all. And that was kind of a bit of inspiration for Cybertease, because after that, when lockdown started, I mean, you know, a lot of sex worker stripper chats on WhatsApp, someone was like, oh, do you know what we should do? We should do a virtual strip club, and we should make it a co-op, and we should share all the profits between us, and like just make it into this amazing thing. We didn't even know how it was going to take off at that point. It was just an idea. Let's do it on Zoom. Let's see if we can get people to come to the strip club without being able to come to the strip club, because we couldn't. And then like it's basically really taken off since then. So I found a newfound love for stripping, but in a different medium.
Yeah. How is that? Because I know, I mean, like I do some virtual things, but I know feeding off the audience and like feeling that energy present in the room is something that I personally really love. How has that changed your experience with like doing it virtually?
Yeah, obviously it is different. Like you don't get that kind of real life interaction and real life connection. And in terms of like performance wise, you don't get that kind of buzz off being on stage or anything like that. But it's just a different way of doing things, and you still get that support in that people are writing in the chat being like, this is amazing, that was so good.
Yes.
Like Cybertease, we're very interactive as well, so we have a list of tipping options so people can tip for specific things, so we make it that the audience are involved even though they're not actually there.
I love that. That's such a good idea. And just because I'm really curious, this is going back in our conversation a little bit. Do you still have your first pair of stripper shoes?
Do you know what? I don't think I do, and that's really annoying. I wish I did actually. They were red. I remember they were red. I must have thrown them out when they got all fucked, like, you know,
as they do. Yes.
But I would love to have been able to frame them. One day, have an exhibition of my life.
Yes.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I am a hoarder, but for some reason I got rid of those.
It happens. Even when you're hoarding, it happens sometimes. You accidentally let something go.
You're listening to this, keep your first pair, because you might want to frame them one day.
Yes.
But like I just, like, even my first ever stand-up show, I didn't record it, and afterwards I was like, oh, I wish I recorded it, and I bet it wasn't as good as I thought in my mind, but I'll never know. But it would have been nice to be able to look back and be like, that was the first time I told jokes on stage, and I could watch that.
100%.
I just have to remember it.
Yeah, it's like no matter how embarrassing you might think it is to have it recorded, it's worth having it recorded.
Nice memento, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how I feel about this podcast. I'm like, I will get better.
Great questions.
Thank you. I'm working on it. So I know, like, we're not here to talk about like your time in comedy, because that is like your other life, but you do some comedy with Sexquisite, and so I would love to give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about Sexquisite, maybe plug anything you want to plug, but I also really want to hear about how you got connected with that work, or how it started, and like your work in it.
Yeah, so basically Maeve is the founder of Sexquisite. She posted on Facebook that she was looking for sex worker artists for a live performance show, and then I got in touch with her, and we ended up going for coffee, and I like gave her kind of quite a bit of input for the first one. She was thinking about hosting it and doing some poetry, and then she was like, actually, do you want to host it? And I was like, yeah, of course. And then when we did the next one, she was like, oh, I want you to, you know, be resident host. I want you to come back and host again. And then after that, she messaged me again. She was like, oh, I'm thinking about applying for lottery funding to run a block of writing workshops for sex workers. Would you be interested in teaching? And I was like, oh, I've not taught any writing workshops before. Are you sure? Like, well, oh, yeah, I'd love you to teach the comedy section. Oh, my cat's just meowing at me. It's not about me,
she's so cute.
She loves the limelight. She's like me. She's such an extrovert. She loves the attention. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So she basically talked me into agreeing to these writing workshops. We applied for lottery funding and we said we want to run workshops specifically for sex workers so that sex workers can have a safe space to talk about our experiences with other sex workers,
Yes.
free from judgment, free from the outside world. And then we got the lottery funding, which we were like really surprised about, which is sad. We shouldn't be. But, you know, sometimes some organisations can have stigma towards sex workers, but they were super supportive, gave us funding to run workshops. We started them in March. We did one real life session and then lockdown happened and we had to move them online, which was great because then we could invite sex workers like yourself from all over the world to join our workshops. Wow, everyone said they really enjoyed it. What we're doing at the moment while we apply for more funding for other projects is we're running online writing workshops, which is open to everyone at the moment. So it's open to sex workers and allies. But of course, it's still a really safe space where people can talk about whatever they want and write about whatever they want.
It's amazing.
But we work where when we offer things for sex workers only, we like to be able to offer them for free, just because we want to support the sex worker community as much as possible. But when we open them up to sex workers and allies, we do charge for our tickets, but we also try to offer a few low income or donation spaces for our workshops so that people can access it who might not be able to access them otherwise.
I love that. It's so good. Yeah, and the experience for anyone listening who might be thinking about doing one of the workshops, I had an incredible time. Highly recommended. It was so good. The one that I did was called Writing to Process Experience. And I was super surprised at the comedy element, but comedy is one of the ways that I process experience without even really thinking about it. And it was so cool to have that be part of that workshop.
You're a great writer as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know when this podcast is going to come out because we are still doing the drop-in sessions for the writing workshops. And we're also we had planned to do a live show in November in London, but because of the new lockdown, there were some more other restrictions. So it was October with household bubbles and everything. It didn't end up happening. So it will happen again in the new year. So basically, if you just follow us on Instagram at sexquisite.events, you can keep updated with everything that we're running, workshops and live events. And then if you also follow Cybertease at Cybertease_, you can keep up to date with all the Cybertease events as well.
And it's magical, highly recommended. All of that will be in the show notes too, so everyone who's listening, you can access those links.
Yeah, and then Cybertease Winter Wonderland is 17th of December, because there's no Winter Wonderland in London this year. We usually have Winter Wonderland in Hyde Park, but Cybertease is bringing Winter Wonderland to all over the world, and it's going to be even more sexy than going on rides and drinking mulled wine outside. So
yes, that's like a tradition in London, is to have that in the park?
Yeah, Hyde Park, yeah.
That sounds like a little beautiful.
Like stalls and rides and food and stuff. Overpriced, but a very good, cute little date thing to do before Christmas or to go with your friends. But yeah, you're gonna have to stay in and watch Cybertease instead this year.
I'm not mad about that. But I'm also not in London, so
I'm performing on this one because we take turns performing and working behind the scenes, and I've got some very special Christmassy surprises in store for people.
I can't wait. Knowing you, it's going to be really out of left field, and I'm very excited about that.
I've been in the 80s one, I did a Dirty Dancing themed show, and I had a cake, like, basically, that did the lift for me, because I kind of jumped onto the cake. And then I also had a watermelon, and on my tip list, one of the options was fuck a watermelon, so someone tipped me £40 for me to fuck a watermelon, so I put my strap-on and I fucked the shit out of that watermelon.
Oh my god, I love that. That's amazing. I know. I remember you said something about a watermelon, and I was like, "Is she gonna crush it with her thighs?" Like, I was just
no. Do you know what? But Pussy Willow, who's a guest performer we had on the other night, what day is it? It's Thursday. 2 nights ago, they crushed a watermelon with their thighs, because they were doing a wrestling themed kind of cosplay, because it was our cosplay event the other day.
I love that.
They are so strong. They were lifting up their flatmate, they were crushing the watermelon between their thighs, they were wrestling with a shark. It was epic. And the thing is about Cybertease is every show is different, and every show has all these weird, random, amazing things that happen. So if you miss it, you don't get to see it again. We don't record it. We take a few little clips for our social media as a kind of sneak preview.
Yeah.
But you have to be there. You have to watch it to see the magic that happens on Cybertease, basically.
That is so, so good. I love that. I also had no idea that with the writing workshops and stuff, that was your first time teaching things. You're a very natural teacher.
So I had taught some pole and burlesque classes a long time ago, but I never taught writing before, and I really enjoy doing it, and I love doing it, and I've had some really good feedback, so I definitely want to carry on doing that and develop that and add that to my repertoire of freelance things I can do.
Yes. One of the questions that I tend to ask people on this podcast is can you walk us through a normal day of work, like an average day of work in sex work for you? I know that's weird because they're all very different.
Fair enough, but it just totally depends. So for example, I might wake up, I'll check my emails, check my social media, I'll do a Cybertease post to promo our show. Then I might, take some sexy pictures and videos for OnlyFans. Then I might send a few emails, because I do a bit of everything. I might, apply for some burlesque shows online, apply for some comedy gigs. I'm trying to think what else, do a dance class, organize my stuff, organize my receipts, go to the shop and buy a watermelon. An average day, that's the thing, every day is different, and there's lots that goes into being a freelance sex worker stroke performer stroke writer.
That's an understatement.
Every day is you do something creative, something admin, then maybe something sexy where I'm performing at Cybertease, or I'm making a sexy OnlyFans video or something, and then maybe go for beauty treatment when it's open. It's just been lifted again, so we're allowed to have beauty treatments again in the UK.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and watch some Gossip Girl.
Yes.
Although I've only just started watching Gossip Girl, and the whorephobia is pissing me off. It's a great show, but the thing is when you watch American shows from even the 2000s to more recently, even Modern Family had some slightly anti-sex work things in an episode I was watching the other day. It just really annoys me how people don't seem to understand that sex workers are people. They never get treated as sex work is a valid job. You never see it where there's just a sex worker in a TV show, and that's their profession, and that's what they do, and it's not questioned, and it's portrayed in a nuanced way, and it's not made a big deal out of. It's always oh my god, they slept with the hooker. Oh, what are we gonna do? Oh my god, I can't believe she's a prostitute. And they always use those words. They never use the word sex worker.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Why? I don't know. And obviously, hopefully things will start to change a little bit more. But when you start noticing it, obviously, especially as a sex worker, but even like if you're listening to this, you're not a sex worker, you're an ally. Once you start noticing it, it's everywhere, and it's so annoying.
You can't unsee it. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. That leads into my next question, which is, what is something you wish the general public would understand about our industry?
That there's not like two extremes, that it's not like super empowering or super dangerous, that it can be both, and everything in between, that you can have really fun, great experiences as a sex worker, and you can have experiences where you felt uncomfortable, or you felt unsafe, or you didn't want to do a certain thing, or you had a fallout with someone at work or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But you can also have days that were okay. You made a bit of money, you did a bit of stuff, it was all right, it was just standard. Like, it's not like you're being trafficked or you're fucking empowered goddess. It's complicated.
Yes.
And that's what people don't understand. And also, people don't understand that they probably know loads of sex workers, but because people are so, what's the word, blunt about their whole phobia, and like kind of like blasé about it, that maybe people don't want to come out to you because they're scared of how you will react. And if you treated sex work like it was just a normal job, which it is, then maybe, I don't know, you'd realize that some of your friends or some of your co-workers or some people you know are actually have been sex workers or are currently sex workers. We're very passionately about it. And I think, like, when I was a baby stripper, I didn't really feel the same passion for activism that I do now. As I'm older and like I've seen more of the world and like done more sex work, I feel much more passionate about changing people's mindsets about it.
Yeah, I think as a baby stripper, it's really overwhelming to start to think about activism for sex workers because you're at this you're in this place where you get to see, at least this is how I felt when I was a baby stripper. I was also taking sociology classes at the time. And I was just like, oh my God, all of the isms of the world meet right here. There's capitalism, racism, sexism, heterosexism. It's all intersecting right here. And it was it was like so overwhelming for me to think about how to even start approaching it. But I totally agree, especially as I've gotten older. It's like this is really important for people to understand that sex work is work. This affects so many people.
The fact that like you'd never say it about anything else. I really want to make a booth where it's like hashtag shop work is work, like, or hashtag admin work is work, and being like, did you know that people who work in an office can also be considered workers with equal work rights, or something that makes it sound so ridiculous that we're not treated the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like I used to experience that when I was a server or bartender. People would be like, oh, you're so lucky to have this job, it's so much fun, like, because you're facilitating a fun job, right? Like, and people said the same thing as a stripper. They were like, this is so much fun. And it's like, yeah, for you, because you're here, I am the facilitator of fun, but I'm also like, this is work, and I'm doing this for like 8 to 10 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why anyone would think working in a bar is fun. Stripping is definitely more fun than working in a bar, because at least as a stripper, you can sit at the bar and have a drink, and your customers can buy you a drink, and you can get drunk, and it's completely fine. But as a bartender, no. That's one of my least favorite jobs I've ever done, I think.
Wow. I mean, when I could, I really loved it when I was drinking and doing it at the same time. I was like, this is great.
Really never worked anywhere fun enough to be able to do that. But the thing I like about stripping actually is that, say you're talking to a customer, like any kind of sex work, but like if you're talking to a customer and you don't want to dance for that customer or do anything for that customer or interact with that customer, you don't have to. You can be like, I'm sorry, I don't work with you. But like when you're in any other job of customer service, you have to serve that person even if they're a cunt. Like, whereas in sex work you have a lot more autonomy and power to refuse that. And obviously, yeah, you won't make as much money, but you know, I don't have to dance for someone rude if I don't want to.
Yep.
And I love that.
Yeah. Whereas like other customer service jobs, you'd be penalized or written up for being like, why didn't you? Yeah.
Exactly. There's no one at the strip club is gonna have a go at you if you walk away from a customer and go talk to another customer. Yeah.
It's empowering in that way. And then there's also like the capitalistic forces at play where it's like, if you're not making any money, there's more impetus to talk to someone who might be being a cunt, you know, where you're just like,
no, that's completely true. It's like an advantage and a disadvantage 100%. In that you go to work at the bar and you know you're going to get paid no matter what happens. You'll get paid to be there. You might get tips as well, you might not. Whereas at the strip club, you are not going to be paid to be there, so it's completely up to you how much money you make. Swings and roundabouts.
It's now we're on labor rights, which we could talk about for hours, to be honest.
The world of work is a bit messed up, I do think so.
Yeah, but I love the point that you made too, because I have it in the show description for this show, is that like I want this podcast to humanize sex workers because we have been like demonized.
We've been dehumanized by people. Dehumanized. The problem with I read this quote the other day and it was so good. I think it was on Twitter. It was something like, sex work isn't unsafe. The problem is that people don't respect sex workers.
Yes.
Something like that. Or is the way it's that people treat sex workers badly. It's not that sex work in itself is unsafe. It's that people don't respect us. Because if they did respect us, it wouldn't be unsafe.
Yeah.
If you, like, we would never be scared of going to a customer if we knew that they were never going to do anything bad to us. Do you know what I mean? Anyway.
If we were treated as, like, human beings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess that's the whole thing where, like, obviously, I mean, sex work is unsafe because the world is unsafe, especially for women, especially by men. So, like, sex work is another way that comes through. Yeah.
Unless you're seen as a certain caliber of woman. I mean, even then, like, it's definitely, the world is more dangerous for women, but, like, there's this like whore
Madonna whore complex.
Yeah, where it's like there's it's not the like virgin whore complex, but it's like a little different, where it's like if you're a certain caliber of sex worker, it's not seen as dangerous and you're not looked down upon. In fact, you're like held up in the eyes of the community, like it's celebrated in a way that like some of these movies and things that have come out celebrate sex work as like you're making six figures and like you're doing the thing and you're
what you mean. I think that people respect sex workers who make more money and who seem to have their shit together. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you work at a really high class strip club and you don't see any customers outside the club and you're making loads of like money, but you're very glamorous. Then yeah, I think that would be something that some people would respect more. But if you're doing OnlyFans, or if you're doing full service, or if you're not working at the classiest strip club, like people will say, oh, like what's the strip club like, or and then you'll be like, oh, that one wasn't very good, and they'll be like, oh, was it too sleazy? And you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, right. what do you mean by that? Like, it's not good if you don't make money. It's there's no other, or if you're not treated well by the bosses. That's why a club would not be good to work at.
Just like any other job. Yeah. People will overlook a lot of things in a person if they're wealthy, if they're rich, or if they are seen to be rich. And I'm thinking specifically of the current American president. Like,
Oh, well,
like
he's not president anymore.
he won't yet. Come January something, he'll be January
Oh, is
21st, I
he still
think.
president?
We
I don't understand
they
how.
don't do the full transition of power till January.
Really, I think in the UK it's literally like the next day your prime minister has
I
been
wish that were the case. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really weird. I guess America is a bit slow, so that makes sense.
100% we are. Yes. we're we're still learning the hard way. Cool. I have a list of rapid fire questions that I'd like to ask you, if you're all right with that.
Amazing.
Sweet. So just answer these as quickly as you feel possible.
Okay.
And we have some easy ones to start with. Vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, pancakes.
Books or movies?
Movies.
Favorite place you've ever been?
Oh my God. I went to Nice in the summer when we were allowed to go on holiday, and it was fucking beautiful.
Oh, that sounds magical. That was last summer?
Yeah.
Ugh,
in August.
So good. A book from your mandatory reading list?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm going to be really annoying and say like The Power of Now, because I think it really helped me like living in the present moment. It is a little bit hippie. It is very kind of spiritual, but the message of it is a really good way of living your life in terms of like you don't really need to worry about the past or the future because they don't really exist. All we have is like now.
Yeah. And as someone who's like comedy and improv, that's really important.
Yeah, totally.
What is a secret talent of yours?
Oh my God. A secret talent. I feel like I don't like to keep my talents a secret, so
I knew this one would be hard for you.
Like, I'll show it to the world.
Or maybe one that not many people know about.
I really like crosswords and playing chess, but I don't get to do them as often as I would like.
Yes, that's a good one. Chess is becoming in vogue again with that new show, Queen's Gambit.
But as soon as I finish Gossip Girl, that's next on my list.
Yes. All right, song or musical artist or album that you've been obsessed with lately?
Oh, I've been listening to this random singer called Mary Moore.
Okay. What genre?
Kind of like weird pop, I guess.
I'm into that.
They played on the Guys We Fucked podcast, and yeah, I'm going to be dancing to one of her songs for the Cybertease Circus show in the new year.
Oh, I'm excited about that. Everyone tune in. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
To take away all the stigma of sex workers and have us totally accepted in society and integrated into society.
I fucking love you so much. What is something simple?
And actually, by integrated, I mean worshipped.
There we go. Yeah. Correction. Worshipped. What is something simple that brings you incredible joy?
My cat.
It's a good one. They're so good.
What else? Stationery. A nice cup of tea.
I love that. All of those things. All of those are really lovely. And then the last one I threw on right before we got on this call, which was a TV show that you can't stop watching.
I really love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think it's a great show.
It is a great show.
Time. Some of the things are a little bit problematic when you rewatch them, but that's always going to happen with any 90s show. Yes. But the characters and the storylines and the fact that it's kind of the tone of it is very specific. It's like fantasy, but it's got a very specific sense of humor, which I really love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffy die. I want to get. Buffy tattoo.
You have to get a Buffy tattoo. I love that. I really love the 90s sort of staccato delivery of humor that they have. Yeah.
Totally. And
so
some people say Sarah Michelle Gellar wasn't that good a comedy actor, but I think she's really funny in Buffy.
Oh, yes.
She nails it.
That's so good. Well, those are all the rapid fire questions that I have. Thank you for doing that with me. Yeah, and I think that brings this to a close. I'm so grateful that you took the time in your afternoon, because it's a 5-hour time difference, which is wild.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah.
I feel honored.
Absolutely. Do you want to let people know where they can find you? Obviously, I'll put it all in the show notes, but if you want to do it.
So, I did say about Sexquisite and Cybertease already. If you want to follow me on Insta, it's at April Fiasco. And if you want to follow my comedy career instead, it's at Carmen Jean Alley.
Wonderful. Cool. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
I hope you all enjoyed that interview as much as I did. The timing delay on Zoom can be really hard, but I think we made it work regardless. Thank you for joining me, and I'm always going to forget this at the beginning, so I'm going to do it now. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/sexygalaxypod, and you can find us on Twitter at sexygalaxypod. Thank you so much for listening. May the force be with you. May all your dreams come true. These are hard still. I don't got one. Who knew it was so funky in space though, right? This is great. Yeah.